I'd like to go briefly through what essentially is my approach to developing these collaborations, and I'll go through a set of slides which describe my experiences, which have laid a foundation for these types of collaborations and are typically venues that would be open to many, if not everyone, in terms of pursuing these types of relationships. And so what I'm going to do is describe, number one, the summer program is linking through its content through the United Nations SDGs, not necessarily obviously all 17 of them, but a select few. I have been involved with sustainability over a reasonable period of time, and including some specifics within the SDGs. I'll talk about an organization called GUNI, YALI, Operation Hope, which is a relatively local program here in the United States around entrepreneurship, cyber programs, institutional relationships, and then Operation Hope. So the coursework that were delivered last year, we delivered this year, are focusing on the following 5 of the 17 SDGs. Clearly, a match exists for SDG 4 with quality education. Again, it's a natural link for the education to transition into jobs which will generate economic. It does represent in and of itself of the program some level of infrastructure and establishing an infrastructure that would previously been very difficult to do, particularly without travel. And so we've been able to establish a platform that has overcome the travel criteria, and as all of us have been involved with Zoom meetings and things of that sort versus meeting in persons. The SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, as well as 17 partnerships for achieving the goals. And so my first incident of a relationship that I think generates an opportunity really in a global way. Back in 2018, I was selected to be part of what they call the GUNI Group of Experts, and GUNI is an organization that represents Network for Innovation in higher ed in particular. There are a list of 9 individuals. Myself, I am the only American there. The others come from around the world, including the continent of Africa, many parts of Europe, and many also parts of even Australia. And so we have been somewhat challenged by COVID as everyone else. And so we have not met since COVID pandemic has hit. Up in that point in time, we were meeting on an annual basis and creating a space where it was research-based as well as practical applications. And so the organization has put out 2 different publications, and each of the experts, so to speak, has been asked to make a contribution to that. In 2018, I was the board chair for ASHE. ASHE is the American Association for Sustainability in Higher Education. And my contribution was a discussion on that organization and other partnerships for implementing the SDGs. In 2019, second publication, I delivered an article which talks about how the implementation of the SDGs is potentially more of an issue of emotions versus facts. My primary research area is consumer behavior. And so while the SDGs make a lot of sense, it's the element of feelings and emotions that are getting in the way in terms of their implementation. We organized 2 different conferences in 2017 and 2020, which was our last meeting. And in that case, we did presentations again as part of the group of experts. Myself, I did one on SDGs and the role of higher education. And then we talked about obstacles to the implementation of the SDGs, again, talking about the idea that it may be people's emotions more so than the fact that the SDGs make a lot of common sense. Emotions, in many times, will overrule the common sense thinking. Another initiative or organization, YALI, Young African Leaders Initiative, was started by President Obama in 2014 to generate increased relationships between the United States and the continent of Africa in general. There were three components of that program: business and entrepreneurship, second one was civic engagement, and the third focused on public service and management. Each group of students were, and the application was very rigorous. They had 50,000 people apply, and they only accepted 500. And so those 500 were distributed across universities within the United States. And that was a cohort of 25 in each campus. Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia was one of the HBCUs that participated. And through the history of the program, Clark Atlanta is the only one that has been a participant each year. Howard University participated for some time, as well as Morgan State University. And so I was one of the instructors for the group of students that were there. They typically were 25 to 35 years old. And we ran the program on entrepreneurship. So they were all either aspiring or existing entrepreneurs looking for ways to benefit their existing or prospective business. I made it a point to engage with the students outside of the classroom, and I have maintained communications with them, as well as being able to visit them in their own countries since 2014. And again, COVID has put a bit of a wrinkle on that. I have plans to go to South Africa and Namibia this December, and we'll expect to convene with some of those fellows while I'm there, as I do each time I travel to the continent. CBER is an organization that has been around for quite some time. The acronym stands for Centers for International Business Education and Research. There are about 10 to 12 organizations, meaning universities within the United States, that host these programs. And they will put travel programs together, as well as doing programs on teaching international business. That's something they do every year. And in any given year, there are many different programs to many different destinations within the program and within the possibilities of where to go. Myself, my first participation went to South Africa and Namibia, partnering with the University of South Carolina. I then went to Chile with Temple University, which is in Pennsylvania. And then I was scheduled to go to Tanzania in 2021, again with the University of South Carolina. That trip was postponed by COVID, and I understand that this year they are renewing their very robust program of travel literally around the world. My potential interest, again, has been the continent of Africa, and that's where I would look to hopefully participate again in the near future. The institutional relationships that I want to speak about essentially have come from my association with different universities, either as faculty or as an administrator. And I found that it was very common that many of the universities may have a religious orientation, that have partner organizations in other countries, particularly in the course of Africa. The cyber travel that I've mentioned, developing a relationship with the African Union, my ACE Fellowship, American Council for Education, back in 2014-15 was my ability to go to South Africa for the first time. And in my travels to different countries over time, I've developed relationships with a number of institutions. And so these are things that are in place for me and other colleagues to reach out directly. And what I found across the continent is that there is a significant, and this should be no surprise, a significant demand for education, but not necessarily the infrastructure to deliver it to the audience that is looking for it. And so there are some mentions of individual universities within South Africa, Senegal, and Zimbabwe, all of which I have visited over time and have maintained relationships over time with faculty and administrators that are there at those universities. And so pending a withdrawal of the COVID restrictions, those would open up to opportunities for visits, both virtual and in person to person. Operation Hope is a US-based organization And they have a relatively new initiative where they are set a goal, a 10-year goal, or establishing 1 million new Black businesses within the United States. They're looking at providing access to capital, business education, mentorship and sponsors for business, access to existing programs, primarily that exist in the United States through the SBA, sorry, my apologies, and a program with the acronym of HUGS, which is Help Us Grow Successfully, and essentially to help mentor beginning entrepreneurial endeavors until they can mature into something a bit larger and more successful. Clark Atlanta, which was in the video, I'm sorry that you couldn't hear that, they partnered with the Operation Hope already in Alcorn State, the school that I am at now. We're in the process of formalizing that arrangement so that we would be a partner school. And essentially what that means is we would have access to supporting small businesses entering into this program and access to the benefits for that program. And looking like that's something that would provide the training and other resources that these small businesses need. In my discussions with the organization, with Operation Hope, is that they are at this point already ready to discuss global opportunities. And so it looks like some of the overlap between some of the initiatives that I've been involved with would provide some opportunity to take some partnerships and relationships that I have across the continent and guide them into this initiative with support for startup businesses and be able to impact this on a global scale. That will close my formal presentation.